Hello, hello. Welcome to the Expert Hour. Today we're going to talk about DevOps 2025 prediction. So DevOps in 2025 won't be only about AI. And today we're going to delve right into it. That's just one of the hot takes that we're going to discuss. And I'm going to introduce two DevOps visionaries today. And of course, they're the experts of this hour, Jobin and Matt. I am Sherry Yang, engineering manager of Venue.sh, a product that aims to simplify and streamline the DevOps process for software development. In the next 50 minutes or so, we're going to, I'm super excited to dive into some bold predictions about the future of our field. We'll explore everything from the rise of platform engineering and the new attention added called FinOps, to the skills that will be in high demand. So let's get ready for some live debate. So Jobin, tell us about yourself and what's your magic power in the DevOps space.
Geez, sorry, I was only going to talk about AI and you ruined it for me. But anyway, my name is Jobin Kuruvilla. I'm the head of DevOps practice here at Adaptivist. So we are leading a lot of customers through change these times and digital transformation as such. So I've seen a lot of DevOps last year. We'll be seeing a lot more today. This year, 2025 as well. So I guess we'll be talking a lot of DevOps today. That's me. I'll pass it over to Matt.
Hello there. So my name's Matt Saunders. I'm leading a number of DevOps initiatives across the Adaptivist group. Been DevOps for a very, very long time and very excited to be replaced by AI. And I'm very grateful that we won't be talking about it today.
Well, I can say that we might talk about it a bit. All right. Before we discuss the current state of DevOps, keep in mind that this is a live session for all of you that is watching. Please share your thoughts and questions in the comment below. We will be here to answer them. So DevOps continues to be a critical enabler of the business that we're in, and pushing agility and innovation. The explosion of platform engineering as a key, it has been a key driver of DevOps success. There has been this focus on continuous improvement in teams. How would you, either Jobin or Matt, how would you describe the current state of DevOps as we enter 2025?
I can
go,
if you don't mind. Current state of DevOps, obviously being the head of DevOps practice and working with a lot of customers, we actually see a lot of movement in the DevOps space in the last couple of years. Every company that I know is either doing DevOps or planning budget to do it in the coming years. Right? If you look at the projections from Gartner or Forrester, you can see that how much DevOps journey is important for the companies these days, and obviously with security added into the mix and DevSecOps being talked about quite a lot. Every single company that I know is doing stuff in the DevOps space, and that's been the most important thing. And platform engineering, as you rightly mentioned, has actually helped companies adopt DevOps at a faster rate, with focus on developer experience and platform engineering in the midst. I think we are seeing a lot of companies adopting those practices.
Yeah, and I'll follow on from that in emphasizing, Jobin, you said like pretty much everyone's doing DevOps now. I think everyone is doing it, and most companies are now on their like third or fourth iteration of what it really means. DevOps as a terminology is kind of feels like it's well bedded in now in 2025, and almost to the point of maybe some complacency in the way that people are doing things. And so, yeah, we're getting stark proclamations that DevOps is dead, and that something else is replacing it. And I think that's actually all good, because those fundamental principles are still there. The things around how do we deliver good software quickly and safely are still all there. But now with all these other initiatives, things like site reliability engineering, platform engineering, etc., all these things are based on like the groundswell of doing DevOps, and that's where we're going now. And yeah, we're seeing a whole new evolution of companies coming into this space, and generic people in IT doing DevOps, looking at that sort of thing.
So, yeah, I'm happy you mentioned about, doing third or fourth iteration of DevOps. That is an interesting one, because the term day to DevOps is actually quite prominent in the DevOps communities. In fact, some of the customers that we work with, they have been doing DevOps from 2018, 2019. And there's this question about, okay, when is this journey going to end? I think there's no end to this journey. There's always evolution happening in the DevOps space. The work that we had been doing them for in 2018 and 2019, it was very much relevant at that point in time. And, some companies are doing that today, what they were doing in 2018 and 2019. So I will say the DevOps maturity is quite different between companies. And we actually even have something we call the adaptivist DevOps maturity model. And that's something that's a maturity assessment that we do when we start working with customers. Basically, the idea is to get a sense of where they are in their DevOps journey. Yes, some companies are very much matured in their adoption of tools and practices, but they still have to evolve based on what's coming out in the market. I'm not saying AI here, but whatever it is. But in many cases, it's also because their maturity level is actually 0 or 1. They have made changes, but it's not helping their practice. The processes are not good enough, so they have to go on a day 2 DevOps journey or a day 3 DevOps journey, right? And figure out what's actually going wrong.
So what do you think that were some of the most impactful development in DevOps in the past?
Oh, that's a good one. In the past, it depends how far back you go. But I would say, and Jobin's going to call me out here because I'm always saying like DevOps is not about tools. But I'm going to say things like Jenkins coming into the marketplace, things giving us visibility on how well we are getting software deployed and delivered is one. I think before those tools like that started coming into the marketplace, it was all a bit mysterious. And you look back into the dim and distant past of how developers used to throw software over the wall to operations people to actually get it off and deployed. And it was all a bit of a dirty secret. And I think the tools that we've seen coming out like that, like Jenkins, like other entrants in that marketplace around continuous integration and delivery, and a lot of the cloud interfaces to servers that we see that allow us to do configuration as code. All those sort of things, I think, show a much higher acceptance of doing things in that sort of way.
Yeah, I think in my mind, yes, you're absolutely right. DevOps is not just about tools, and every company that we work with, they have a Jenkins or a Bitbucket or a GitLab, GitHub, one of those tools which will help them with continuous integration and continuous deployment. But the biggest shift I have seen is actually shifting left, the mentality of shifting left in the last couple of years, because they want to address everything faster. Fixing anything in production is actually really costly and it takes time. So shifting left and even doing security at the beginning of the journey, that mentality is what I'm seeing more and more in these years.
Yeah, I'd like to riff on that a little bit more with the shifting left. So DevSecOps as a term came in maybe 3 or 4 years after DevOps itself, and has kind of kicked around a bit, and we've got better at it. We've got much better at it. Then there was a bit of a dramatic event that happened last year, which caused like a big outage across the entire world, where people, even my mum, was saying things like, when there was basically Windows computers going offline all over the world, and she's like, well, Matthew, you do like IT stuff. Why aren't people testing these things? And I think things like that are bringing some of the initiatives we've tried to bring into organizations into focus. So yeah, shifting left like never before. I think in the last 6 months or so.
The blue screen in airports.
Blue
That's what
screen,
everybody's
blue screen across healthcare, etc. Everywhere.
Forced everybody to talk about DevOps. I
Yeah.
was even telling my kid while I was in the airport, "Hey, look at the blue screen. That's what I do. Helping people not to see the blue screen."
I hope you're not telling your children that you help enhance the blue screen. No, we're here to avoid that. Obviously, tool is such a big help in DevOps, and in DevOps, I know that there's a chain of tools that DevOps engineers got themselves into. As I help develop Venue.sh, we care the most about reducing complexity and putting effort into improving developer experience and easy onboarding. To unify some of these tools into one for DevOps. So as we look forward to 2025, what are some of the expectations that the DevOps industry and what key trends do you anticipate to shape this future?
Yeah, before I go into that, I must say that, okay, Adaptivist actually did a study on the CrowdStrike outage that happened. And, there's a wonderful report that's been published with all the learnings from it and how companies are more serious about security and adopting some of the learnings from the CrowdStrike incident. So if you haven't seen it yet, please do go to our website and check it out. Regarding what's coming in 2025, yes, I have to absolutely start with artificial intelligence. Because I did mention, obviously that's the only thing I know to talk about these days, not just that. I did mention that, we had to take advantage of the technology that's out there and adapt and, evolve. The biggest change that happened last year was obviously the proliferation of AI technology and the tools that is coming along with it. And you look at any big DevOps platforms, from any of these vendors, there is a lot of functionality that is being added into the tools itself, which has to do with artificial intelligence. And we have to take advantage of that and see, AI is not going to replace anything. I firmly believe that's not going to be the case, at least not in the near future, right? But AI is going to make us more productive and help us do things much faster, quicker, more efficient. So if you're not taking advantage of it, then, we're not taking advantage of all the technologies that is available to us. So that is still going to be a big focus. And it's you might have seen these videos where in YouTube, after a major Microsoft event or an Apple event, people counting the number of times AI is mentioned in the keynote. And it's funny to an extent, but at the same time, it is happening for a reason, right? There are exciting things that you can do with AI. And if people are taking advantage of it, we can do wonders.
Yeah. So my answer on that is, AI. It's huge. It's absolutely massive. And I think now that we're in like year 2 or 3 of AI, or of like commoditized, well, not commoditized, but frequent use of LLMs to help people do whatever they're doing. I think we're managing to put aside the whole kind of will AI come for our jobs? Are we going to? Is it inevitably over a long period of time? There's going to be a big change there, and it's probably not something that we should probably dwell on right now. But what we can see right now is a whole load of opportunity, as Jobin said, around doing what we might consider to be the more mundane parts of the job, in terms of like developers are using AI heavily now, and should be using AI heavily to write code, to write tests, and yes, massive concerns there. Things like how do we make sure that we do not accidentally upload all of everything that we're doing, all of our customer confidential information to an AI, which could spread to our competitors, etc. And so we're seeing a lot of people actually running their own AIs. But again, let's not dwell on that. The reality is that AIs get things wrong, but AIs do actually get things right quite a lot of the time. And the time saving that you get by getting an AI to do some work for you and then checking what it's done for you is huge and considerable. And we're seeing, as Jobin said, an explosion in releases in the tools that are coming out that are helping us to do things like this. Things like Amazon Q coming out and being tied quite closely to one of our partners, the new GitLab Duo functionality that's coming in there, where we're getting embedded AI that's doing really, really good work. And frankly, there's a lot of other good things going on in terms of DevOps and in platform engineering, site reliability engineering, all of the pursuits underneath of DevOps. But yeah, it's just massively dominated by the AI stuff, and I don't see that changing for a year.
Yeah, and I must say, nobody can process information as fast as computers can, right? And with AI in the midst, the way we process information faster, it helps us to do things like, let's say, root cause analysis. It's something that's again coming in GitLab pretty soon, if it's not already out there. Looking through massive chunks of logs and finding out, okay, what possibly caused an issue with a build pipeline or a deployment pipeline. It actually helps you a lot. I mean, imagine how many times you have to navigate through the Jenkins logs, maybe for hours to find out what exactly caused a particular pipeline to fail. You don't have to do that anymore. You actually have it right there telling you, oh, this is probably what happened. You can just go to, line number 150 on this particular file and remove that semicolon. This will help you fix the issue. How nice that is, right? How much time are we saying doing just that? So I think that is why it's important. And again, alerts and monitoring is another good example, right? People are scared of alerts. I have seen companies where, they get 1,000 alerts a day and they shut down alerts because, they thought, okay, if I'm getting 1,000 alerts a day, none of that is important, right? But imagine if an AI tool can actually go through those 1,000 alerts and see that, okay, 900 of them are harmless alerts, but or maybe I don't even want to say 900, 990 of them are harmless alerts, but there is like 10 that you need to really pay attention to. If AI can do that job for us, then obviously we humans can jump in and look at those 10 alerts which needs attention and then do what's needed, right?
Yeah, it's like we've got one of my favorite as a diehard Linux sysadmin, one of my favorite tools is grep, right? Get regular expression and print. And now we've got AI enabled grep. It's like, I've literally, as you have, Jobin, been that person in front of a monitor with text green, probably in a data center, shining up on your face so that you see the reflection of the matrix symbols on my spectacles, and you're like looking for a needle in a haystack under the pressure of like trying to actually resolve an outage. And we get a bit smarter. We look for patterns, and we get our observability platform to alert us on certain phrases. And like you say, Jobin, it goes a bit wrong, and we've accidentally sent like 7,000 emails to everyone, including the CEO, saying that there's some randomly trivial problem. And all of a sudden, there's there's all this massive data, and I'm tired. It's 5 o'clock in the morning. I've been paged. I don't know where to start with it. There you go, AI. It's not just that you don't know where to start with this data. It's like you don't know what you want to get out of it, and then suddenly we've got something that can actually kind of think for itself. I've yet to see a denouement of this, where the AI has come in to save the day and given you like the root cause problem analysis within like 5 seconds, where previously it would have taken various hardcore sysadmins like days to find it. It's yet to happen, but it is going to happen, and I think I'm excited. I think.
Yeah, and I agree that AI will be that high-speed assistant for us. Integrating into the tool is also a really, really great way to showcase AI usability. I also hear that Jobin mentioned, analysis and alerts and all these like data processing using AI is going to increase that usability for AI with DevOps. So, what do you think that is? What do you think is the most important thing that companies take action right now?
I think it's all about finding what tools work for them. Again, this is why platform engineering is so important, right? Most companies I know, they are actually working on putting an efficient platform out there, which will help with their developer experience. And finding the right tools which has all these AI capabilities. You have these build versus buy arguments. Most of the time when we develop an internal developer portal or a platform, DevOps platform, one of the things companies try to do is, okay, should we build it ourselves or should we look at, something that's already out there? The way Spotify did it with Backstage, they had to build their internal developer portal themselves, which later became open source by the name Backstage, right? So those platforms already have a lot of capabilities today. So for companies to pick the right tools and build a platform, and then take advantage of that, all the capabilities, including the AI capabilities that comes along with the platform, I think that's key, which is also why platform engineering is one of the most important topics discussed about in the DevOps world these days. It was huge last year. It will continue to grow this year. I don't know much what you think about platform engineering as a whole. From my perspective, it's everything to do with developer experience and how to improve the DevOps process as a whole.
We actually have a question from our audience focusing on platform engineering. Now that we're in this topic, what are the most effective method for organizations in 2025 to evaluate the impact of their platform engineering effort, and which KPI should they prioritize to align with strategic objective? It's a big question.
I think I'll start with the DORA metrics. See, at the end of the day, keep it short, right? It's all about how fast you can deliver to production, how fast you can resolve the issues that is coming in production. I always say, don't talk about key technical topics. Start talking about the business problems that the customers are facing. Like if a customer is taking 6 months to deliver something into production, that means yes, they have a problem, and DevOps is there to help them, take things into production much faster and quicker. If they have too many bugs in production, that is another problem that you can talk about. This all translates into the DORA metrics. Or, in the case of adaptive DevOps maturity assessment, we have much more than just 4 metrics. But at the end of the day, it's about, time to recovery, lead time to market, those kind of metrics that you need to focus on. Matt, I don't know if anything else you wanted to add there.
No, I was going to go down exactly the same route. So yes, DORA metrics, well established. That's the DevOps Research Association metrics. Change lead time, deployment frequency, I've got them there. Change fail percentage and failed deployment recovery time, massive. So we talked a few minutes ago about how you look at 2018 DevOps and how you would change between then and now. I've seen some organizations adopt DORA metrics, and almost all of them gain massive benefit from doing it. It's just through measuring these things that are well thought out. This comes from Google fundamentally. Measuring these metrics that are well thought out gets you a hell of a long way. People are starting to game them though. Or maybe some people have been doing that right from the very beginning. It's like as soon as you start measuring it, some people are going to game it. So I would encourage people to have a discussion about these metrics. By all means, start doing it. And you get a lot of excuses. Oh yeah, well our change fail percentage is high because whatever. Have a discussion about it. It might be there are other metrics that are better for you. There's new ones coming out. There's things like the DX Core 4 metrics, which are kind of similar, but a little bit more postmodern. I'm not going to say they're any better or worse than the DORA metrics, but absolutely agree on what those things are going to be. The great thing about metrics frameworks like these is they do tend to cross-cut across organizations. So it's not just something that your operations people are going to be measuring you on. But yeah, I've just spent like 2 minutes just mirroring what Jobin has said, but also I want to bring in some value stream mapping as well here, especially with things like platform engineering. One of the big goals that sometimes gets forgotten about platform engineering is the ability of teams to provide services and tools that other teams can use independently and through self-service. And if you're doing a little bit of value stream mapping, where you're looking at how long does it actually take you to deliver some value, whatever that might actually be, then you can start to see whether those initiatives are succeeding or not. I mean, TLDR, there's a lot more to it than that. But I would, if you're doing any sort of internal customer type stuff, where you're trying to provide a platform for developers, for testers, for whoever, then yeah, just see if it is actually helping them to improve the speed of delivery of value.
Yeah, that's an.
Oh, sorry. I think, yeah, that's a very, very good insight, especially a lot of companies question the value that's given with platform engineering, and the platform engineering team also have this challenge of making themselves valuable to the rest of the company, to teams, to engineering teams that's using these like fundamental models that they've created for better and better efficiency through times. So what do you think that is something that platform engineer and platform engineering team can do to overcome these like mixed results? Obviously, we talked about gaming the system. Like, what are some of the things that we can avoid to move forward with better understanding of platform engineering?
I think there's two things, right? One is obviously, cataloging everything and making it visible to everybody, right? That's why internal developer portals are so important these days. And then there is, enforcing best practices or standards across the company with the help of platform engineering, right? Now, I'll just talk a little bit about value stream mapping, which Matt was talking about. It's important because, as Matt said, yes, people will try to game the system, and, they will look at KPIs specifically in pockets, right? And they'll say, okay, my team is actually doing really well. We are very, very efficient in the terms of delivery and blah, blah, blah. But when you look at end-to-end, right, which is what you can see in a proper internal developer portal, when you look at it end-to-end, you can see that, okay, it's not as efficient as it sounds, because it's efficient in pockets, but there are certain areas where there's a lot of wastage, there's a lot of time taken to do stuff, right? If you can identify that and then address that particular problem, and now how do you bring that problem into the focus? That's where the IDPs matter, or the platform engineering matters, right? Once you have visibility into it, you can work towards addressing that problem and then bring it all together. Yes, there has to be metrics for teams, but then there has to be metrics, for the organization. So you have to take a step backward and see the whole picture. Now, how you get the whole picture, that's where platform engineering comes in. And once you have that, and also taking some of the best practices from certain teams where it is working well, then using it as a standard, templating it, and now making it available to the wider teams, to the entire organization, to learn from it, to make use of those, right? That is also another area where platform engineering excels. I think those are my two main concerns about platform engineering.
Matt, would you like to add to that?
I will when I find my mute button. Yes. Underlying everything that Jobin said, I think so. I've maybe put a disproportionate amount of negging on gaming metrics, and I think you can kind of come back from that and avoid that kind of thing through just making sure that everyone's bought into this. So yeah, when you're looking at platform engineering, I think making sure that you've got absolute candor going across the organization around what are the things that you can demonstrably improve, how you can take paper cuts out of your development teams, workflows. The value stream stuff, the interfaces, when stuff goes from one team to another, it almost inevitably causes a delay. And one of the things that we've traditionally done to mitigate that has been to basically to smash teams together. So you have cross-functional teams. A lot of organizations have had a lot of success with cross-functional teams. So you have maybe a team that a couple of pizzas can feed, which can do everything. Those sort of things don't really scale though. And so I think the platform engineering discipline really does help there. So you can't just have like 10 two-pizza teams working together and actually being effective and being able to deliver stuff at the same rate as each other. And so how you end up deciding where you concentrate your platform engineering effort is probably a decent amount of science to get the best bang for the buck there. But yeah, I mean, the TLDR is that as soon as you can start putting the right people together, working on the same things, where everyone has the same sort of problems, then there's some clues. There are some clues. Other things I would encourage is face up to the fact that most of us are not Amazon. We're not Google. We're not massive. Therefore, we have ideas of building a platform which just transcends everything. And maybe you can work towards getting there, but find where you can make the biggest bang for your buck in the early days first, because otherwise you'll be there forever and not actually achieving anything.
One of my burning question related to our previous topic on AI is actually aligns with our audience question. So my own burning question with like AI and platform engineering is the combination of low code, no code platform. Would it take over platform engineering and hold? There's a question in the audience that asks, like these, because of AI implemented in DevOps process, is there a risk? Do you see if there's a risk causing everyone to think and act the same and potentially losing engineering critical thinking, which can be so important in engineering in general?
This is a really interesting question. I mean, my counter argument is, this is the whole point of AI, right? I'm not saying that I'm a big fan of AI. I still don't drive, self-driving cars, or I don't buy FSD because I'm still scared of somebody introducing a bug and everything goes haywire. But at the same time, the whole point of AI in my thinking is, let it do the hard work for you in terms of the mundane work, the difficult work for you, and then that will help you or free up some time for you where you can use your creative juices to, find something more innovative, do things that AI itself cannot do, right? So it's all about sparking that creativity with the extra time that you're getting when we are not, analyzing 10,000s of lines of code, or, going through all those 1,000 alerts that we were talking about earlier. So use AI as a helper rather than, seeing it as an enemy who is going to replace you, right? So that way, let your creativity flow with all the extra time that you're having. And it is true even for DevOps practices, right? I mean, you're now not focused on writing automated testing, right? Let AI do that for you, at least not in parts. And then see how you can, improve the efficiency of your pipeline by cutting down time, maybe adding new build stages in parallel and things like that.
I'm going to riff on your car analogy there. And don't worry, I'm not going to mention that man. It's like, so yeah, I'm driving my car and it takes care of various things for me. I remember like having to deal with things like chokes with carburetors on my car. I remember having to deal with things like open the window if I was too hot. And these things are kind of solved for us. And I think in an IT context, this comes down to abstractions. So yeah, when my air conditioning fails in my car, I know I can still open the window, well, assuming the electrics haven't failed. And yeah, if you look at all the abstractions that we have in IT, they are not that I'm saying that the car industry is less sophisticated, but they are massive in IT, the abstractions that we have. And yeah, as we get AI to do more of the work, we use our muscles less, our brain muscles, to deal with the things that the AI is now dealing with, and so inevitably, yes, those things will go downhill. I struggle with, like, am I an AI fan or not? Sometimes I'm like, well, yes, it saves a load of time, but then I feel like I sound like someone from decades ago, when computers came in and they're like, oh, computers will just like do everything for us, and we'll just be sat on the beach like with a pina colada. And the rate of AI coming into our lives, not just in tech, but in our lives in general, it's just everywhere, is so huge that we kind of can't ignore it. So yes, there's a massive risk, to come back to Mark's question, of losing that critical thinking. But the answer is not to Luddite style ignore it. We can't, because all of our competitors will be doing it. And there's a first mover advantage to using this, much like many automation things. So yeah, there's going to be some disasters where we thought AI had taken care of something, and not only because AI does things like hallucinating, something would just fail, and we'll be like, oh my God, how did we used to do that? I think we're probably in a better position overall, given competitive landscape and the rates that this is changing, to kind of almost let those things happen, because holding us back or holding ourselves back from it because of these potential problems is probably not going to be any better.
Yeah, and I will also fully not dismiss Mark's question, because he has a really good point that a lot of the time we see that the different tools are thinking the same way, acting the same way, and we're getting the same information back. I remember this analogy where somebody was talking about Glyphy. Whenever you want to put a sticker out there, most of the time you see the same sticker often, because that's the one we always put, and the algorithm then puts that sticker up there for you, so you can easily put it. So you don't see maybe a more funnier sticker at all, right? So you have to be smarter. You have to make even AI respond to you in different ways, and that's probably why prompt engineering in itself is like an engineering thing right now. People are taking courses about prompt engineering, because you have to make AI think as well. So you have to be creative in ways of how you use AI. Obviously, for something like going through logs and finding the root cause analysis, yes, it's the same. But in terms of writing code, maybe you don't actually trust the code that comes out of AI's mouth in the first time. You ask it in a different way. So if there's a better way to do things, right? So don't always fall into that trap of, okay, AI gave me something, I'm just taking it and using it, right? Ask it differently, find out if there is a better way to do things. Not just, let your creative juices flow in terms of, what are things you can do, but, you use some of your brain and be a little smarter about, how to use AI.
We can probably extend this transport analogy somewhat. Actually, this probably isn't a good idea, but I'm going to go with it. So planes, commercial aeroplanes, basically fly themselves, right? But pilots know how to fly a plane manually, like an Airbus 380 or whatever. Turn off all the avionics, and okay, maybe that's not technically possible, but they know like the fundamentals behind this, and I'm sure they practice it. And maybe a good way of dealing with this is for us to be very, very conscious and aware of where an AI is doing things for us. You could also say, like, we're building out infrastructure with Terraform or CloudFormation, and we put in some parameters and click a button and off it goes, and it happens like magic. And we probably know enough about what's going on in the background for us to do that manually if the system was to fail, or to be able to debug what it's done if it like it's interrupted halfway, etc., etc., etc. And I'll go further and say that with the fact that AI is so random and can tell you different things on a different day for no apparent reason, correctly or wrongly, probably means that we're in a position to keep it a bit more honest, and we might have ordinarily been if we suddenly had this magic thing that got things right all of the time. Because we're already, just to pick up on what you were just saying, Jobin, we're already checking what it's doing. And we probably have to have a word with ourselves and make sure that we continue checking what it is doing. And again, I don't know how practical this is actually going to be. You can get into conversations to things like, well, we'll have the AI do some stuff, and then we'll have another AI check what the AI has done. And then maybe have the third AI check what the second AI thinks about the first AI. And then eventually we have like 98.5% confidence in the AI. I mean, that stuff is happening as well.
That's when we sit on the beach and drink pina colada. I get it.
That's when we do that, yes. And and just occasionally check in on our robot overlords.
The way I see it is that AI is one of the tools that we can use in DevOps and platform engineering for sure. I wonder, if like with these tools that is within our reach, and one of the questions that is being brought up in the comments is, what are some of the tools that you personally use to ignite the cultural element of a DevOps transformation?
Well, I can take that. I think I previously mentioned about the adaptivist DevOps maturity assessment that we do. Most of the time, we focus only on tools, and it's easy. We even mentioned about the DORA metrics. A lot of that is actually to do with tools, right? So with the adaptivist DevOps maturity assessment, what we do is, we ask people real questions about, to sum up developer experience, and that includes people, process, and tools, right? When it comes to people and process, we see a lot of pain points there, which is not normally addressed by moving to a different tool. Like, for example, if you're using a GitLab or a GitHub, do you really think the tool is a problem? Maybe you need a better branching strategy, right? If you're not doing the branching correctly, then obviously whether you're using Bitbucket, GitHub, or GitLab, all really good tools in their own terms, it's not going to change anything. So maybe you have to take a step back and look at the actual processes that you're employing. And there's the cultural element. I think that's, again, one of the biggest questions from Curtis, the cultural element. Whenever you're doing digital transformation, the biggest thing is changing the culture of the company. And that is not something you can monitor with DORA metrics, right? So there you have to, again, talk to the people, identify from top to bottom, you have to ask the same question to the different personas too, and you will see that you may get different answers to it. Like, for example, the CTO of the company might say that, okay, we have a DevOps maturity of 4 out of 5. Whereas if you talk to a DevOps engineer, they might have a completely different opinion, right? Because they are actually seeing different pain points at that level. So once you find out that the maturity from different people, and then you can see, okay, culturally where they are, and to transform them into a different process, a different tool in the end, in many cases, that is where the transformation actually takes off. But it's not something that you can monitor by a single metric, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think when I initially read that question, I'm like, tools and techniques for the cultural stuff. I'm like, no, you can't really. But actually, I'm going to step back a little bit from that, because I think if you're looking at maturity matrices, you're looking at value streams, especially when you look at, I'm going to underline what Jobin said around how one person thinks that you're a 1 on the maturity scale, and another person thinks you're a 4. Where you've got like violent agreement on stuff, then you're probably quite well aligned. So it's probably looking at those sort of techniques. So maturity matrices, value stream map type stuff, single pane of glass onto things like DORA metrics, and seeing the discrepancies or where the groupthink happens. I think there's some good places to start looking for fixing things culturally. And fundamentally also, if you're trying to fix things culturally, you can't do it from the bottom. It's got to come top down and bottom up. I think, and again, that's a little bit of a cliched approach, but it kind of is really true. And so I think you could also be looking at things like internal NPS type things. So it's like, how happy are your developers? Do they feel like they're acting in a psychologically safe environment? All those things can be factors in pointing the finger at cultural problems. And looking at who is actually answering these questions, because quite often you can find, as I said a minute ago, like groupthink going on, where a group of people will variously believe a certain thing, and it's not reflected across the whole organisation. Actual tools for doing this, I don't know. I think the biggest tool for doing this is up here. It's people.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned about the NPS. Again, going back to the DOMA that we have, it does pretty much the same thing. And you have to do it every quarter to see if there is an improvement or not. Are we employing changes that is actually making an improvement? Now, one of the techniques that we use with our customers and where we have seen a lot of success is, translating these problems into a language that people can understand. And when you're talking to the different personas, you're asking them different questions. Like for CTO, you're not talking about, hey, the build pipeline is failing often. Yet you're mostly talking about a much higher level problem. Yes, it is taking 6 months to deploy to production. Yes, we are seeing a lot more bugs in production. Translate that into something that the CTO can understand. Similarly, when you're talking to DevOps engineer, translate it into their language so they can understand why we are doing this cultural shift, right? As long as everybody understands that, yes, we are getting some benefit out of this exercise, I think people will be happy to come along. It's all about bringing everybody together, telling them that everybody gets value out of this exercise of digital transformation, cultural transformation, whatever you're doing. As long as they all understand the benefits, I think we are in a better place. The key thing is speaking to each persona about their language and telling them what problem they are facing that we are trying to address there.
There's so many good questions in the comments, so I'm going to prioritize them before we maybe briefly talk about FinOps. So there's a question where it's asking about how AI can mitigate risk management. So in terms of like incident that happens, is there any way that we could use different tools, perhaps integrate AI to make sure that this strategy is implemented to cover the current 2025 management strategy?
Yeah, I mean, so we talked a little bit about using AI in resolving outages. In terms of risk management, yes, it probably does have a place. And I'm going probably here because I've not done it. In being able to look at things like architectures and finding single points of failure, for example. Being able to look at a huge wodge of historic data to spot patterns. So maybe a CPU is spiking at 3 a.m. every fourth Friday of the month or something that you can't really see on a graph. And that can help us a lot. That can really massively help us in terms of risk management. Whether that risk is outweighed by the risk of the AI getting it wrong or not, exercise to the reader, I think, at this stage. But those are the sort of things we can be doing with AI models getting increasingly more sophisticated and being able to, you can throw increasingly large numbers of, I forget the exact word for it, but groups of text that you throw at an AI. Somebody in the comments will tell me off for being not up on my AI terminology. The reality is you can throw a huge amount of data at AI and maybe it'll take a few seconds to think about it and understand it. But the way that prompt engineering is going, it's going towards supplying it with a lot more contextual information. And that can be lots of logs, lots of metrics, etc., to help really think around what risks there might be. And yeah, sooner or later, we'll be using that corpus of data to tell us what new risks we should be worried about as well.
Yeah, I'm being mindful with the time, and I love the question that's coming in the chat, in the comments. Really appreciate that. We will actually answer those questions offline because I really want to talk about FinOps in this conversation today. So we currently live in an economy that values cost efficiency. We have heard too many. I've heard like too many horror stories about how expensive cloud infrastructure can be as it scales or lack of attention. So I think my curiosity right now is right on the spot with FinOps, which is a very new space in the ecosystem right now. So could you tell me what kind of FinOps technique to leverage to optimize the current cost-effective playing in cloud strategies?
Yeah. Do you want to go first, Matt?
All right. Am I allowed to mention AI again?
Oh no. Here we are.
We've had FinOps platforms for a little while now. Maybe they've not been called that. There is now a FinOps Foundation, and that's a relatively recent thing. But yeah, actually doing this has been a thing for a while. And again, I said this earlier, as soon as you start measuring something, this is in terms of the DORA metrics, but as soon as you start measuring what your costs are, then there's almost like a transparent effect where your costs just start going down. Because you can start doing things like equating what you're spending to the money that you're bringing in. So if it costs you X amount of dollars to run a system for Y users and you're charging Z, then there's a fairly easy metric to make there. Where FinOps is getting exciting now is in the increasing intelligence of these systems. So we can go in at the ground floor and be like, well, yeah, through some judicious use of AWS or GCP tagging, we can tell that like that department is spending that amount of money on cloud stuff this year. But then it doesn't really take into account things like, well, what about all the VPCs? All the the kind of fundamental shared stuff. How do you account for that cost? Or yeah, how do you attribute those costs to different business units, to different services and products, etc. And furthermore, things like, what the hell is that virtual machine that's been running for 3 years over in US West 2? AI is now starting to creep into these products as well, with some good guesses on these sort of things. And actually some good guesses is probably better than what we've already had, because those good guesses get you somewhere to being able to understand those costs better. So products in the FinOps space are using increasing degrees of intelligence, both artificial and not, to help people do these sort of things. And you get closer to being able to understand that equation. So, directly, this thing that we're providing, this is the cost of it. And that's just going to get better.
Yeah, and I'll say this, people actually ping me and tell me, Jobin, someone in your organization is actually using this particular account, and there's an EC2 instance running for 3 years. So I've seen that happening. So it is true. But FinOps doesn't just end there. It's one of the biggest trends that needs to be watched in the coming years. Yes, there is a lot of platforms which will help you save money. AWS and GCP and all these cloud providers coming with their own ways of identifying cost efficiencies that you can make and things like that. But when I attended the Gartner conference in Barcelona last year, there was an interesting statistic that caught my attention. More than 60% of the cloud costs actually come from SaaS products that we use, not just from the cloud providers like AWS or GCP or Azure. That was very interesting to hear. In fact, when we did our FinOps exercise here at Adaptivist, we found out that we are using over 300 SaaS products ourselves, right? And there's a lot of licenses or seats that we do not really need. So just by shutting down, multiple SaaS products that doing the same thing, and by saving costs on licensing and by getting rid of seats that we don't need anymore, we save a buckload of money. So if you're planning to do FinOps, in your company, the TLDR is don't just look at your cloud costs. Cloud costs, when I say costs in terms of AWS or GCP or Azure, but also look at all the other SaaS products that you're using, right? And see how many licenses you actually need. Are you using a 10,000 user license when you really need only 1,000 or 2,000, right? Are you using 1,000 user license when 500 users are inactive all the time? How can you bring down that cost? And that could actually save you a lot more money. And so start there, and then obviously make your cloud spendings more efficient, as Matt was mentioning earlier.
Yeah, and obviously I can hear a trend of like what we're discussing today, where we have at the Adaptivist group, we actually offer this like state of where your DevOps is at, or even your organization is in terms of cloud infrastructure. Is there a specific, and perhaps this is one last question, if companies, and this is more action items for companies who are migrating to cloud, perhaps thinking about a hybrid solution, because cloud is such a huge thing as we move forward to 2025. What are some of the most important things that they need to consider when they make that decision? Is it FinOps? Is it AI? Is it platform engineering?
I think cost is an important factor for sure. So you have to know what you're signing up for, because most of the companies actually migrate to cloud so they can reduce the costs in terms of infrastructure. But they probably are not realizing that cloud can be as expensive as well if you do not carefully plan for it. And that is where FinOps is such an important topic. So you have to really, have an architecture in place. You have to see ways of, predicting the costs that will come out of it. Even if you're using serverless architecture, how many Lambda calls are you, expecting? Even if you have simple things like, taking logs outside to a different application like Splunk, that's where AWS will charge you money for. So those kind of things that you haven't thought before, you have to think through. I think that is an important thing. So cost will definitely be a factor.
Costs will definitely be a factor, but do not procrastinate over the costs. I think it's all of these things. I'm going to sit massively on the fence here, and say no. It's not really on the fence. There's a balance here. We can get postmodern about stuff now. We've heard the horror stories about costs. We've also heard the horror stories about people who can't innovate because everything is costed to within a centimeter. And I think where you win is actually in finding the right balance of all of these things. I mean, there's a lot there. Get on top of AI. Decide what you're going to do with AI. We talk about it a lot, and the worst thing you can do is just talk about it. And you don't have to be like the best at using AI. You don't have to be the best at reducing your costs. You don't have to be the best at working out which bits of your platform to put self-service automation around, but do lots of that. But finding the right balance there and inculcating a culture that lets you do those things with some degree of nuance that works for you, whilst also learning from what everyone else is doing, is how you win there, I think.
Amazing. With that, this is the Expert Hour for you today. Thank you so much, Jobin and Matt, for sharing your expertise with us. And thank you so much for the people who are in the comments sharing your questions and thoughts. For those questions we haven't answered, we will definitely create a blog post or however to answer your questions in the next few days. So yeah, stay tuned for the Expert Hour with the Adaptivist. Bye.
Thanks all.